Welcome my friends to a little Alliteration gaming video. I'm your host Alliteration Gaming, aka Levi, aka Red Riot, check the hair. And today we have it is a tier list, but it's kind of more of a general ranking video, but I guess by technicality it is a tier list, and I guess we should call it a tier list because I think the YouTubes likes that. Today, we're going to be doing something super cool. We're going to go over every ultra rare in set 1 of the My Hero Academia collectible card game. We're going to be ranking this from, so like, I have the tiers here, and kind of like the ultra rares are a little more comprehensive as far as, or rather complex to rank. So the general grading for these is going to be kind of based on a combination of all things. So like their strength, their versatility, as like so far as like their general use in all decks, their strength in all decks as opposed to like just one deck, how powerful they are in that one deck, what they kind of achieve, if they're a whole game plan, if they're a whole engine, and of course, you know, their difficulty, their check, their block zone, their attack zone, their stats, everything like that. So let's get right into it. So without further ado, first thing we have up is Detroit Smash. So Detroit Smash. Detroit Smash is kind of a hard one. I think I'm gonna stuff it into the B tier. Like, it is a good card, don't get me wrong. It's got so much going for it. Like 6 mid for 6. It's got the EX. It's got the powerful. It needs barely any setup. It needs no setup if your deck is built for it. It is a 2-check, and like, oh, that 2-check, man. I thought the 2-check is what ultimately might keep it in the B tier. And like, it is, yes, it is like the whole win con of decks that it's built around, but I don't know that that's like the strongest way to play this card anyway, just because like putting so much value into this just for it to get, you know, completely cucked by something like a short circuit or a plus ultra or a rigor, what is it, training partner, the one that changes a speed to 4. Like there's just like a lot of you're so obvious. Like there's a lot of stat resets in the game. I don't think that's the best way to play this card, but just playing it as like a really like a value 6 mid for 6 that can like set up the rest of your turn, like it's just really good. It's also like a +0 high block, which is like kind of unheard of. I think it's the only non-character 0 block in the game, which is pretty gnarly. But I do think, especially once we start looking at the rest of these, like this is a weird one to start with, but once you start looking at the rest of these, I think you'll kind of understand why this one is more of a B tier card. Now, on the complete opposite end, Mr. Texas Smash, this is my first S tier. This card's just insane. It's so free. It is a 4 diff. It's just a 4 diff, 4 high, off zone for 7 damage for free, and you can give your next +4. That can also be to a throw. There's like no limitations on what the +4 goes to. Any attacks, you can put it on a throw and do just disgusting things, and it's just a +1 mid. Like, yes, it has to combo with a punch, so you don't play it in like everything, but if you're playing it like under Earth or Good, you're like probably playing like almost all of those decks aside from like Momo and Jiro are gonna end up being like punch-based decks, and like especially like even if you're just playing on Earth, you probably have Kirishima attacks, so like you're probably putting those cards in your deck, so you're gonna just have punches in your deck, and this is just gonna be such a free card. I think this card's just nuts. Even though it is restricted to punches, I think it still belongs up here just because of how insane it is otherwise. Next we got Blitz Rush. So this is another really cool card, but I do think it falls into the B tier alongside Detroit Smash. Now you're probably thinking like, whoa dude, this thing's like 1 billion damage. Like, why is this a B tier card? Well, like, it is good, right? Like it's a 4 high, it's got stun 1, it's got 7 printed damage, it can get even more damage. It's got a deadlock that doesn't allow them to go into deadlock, and it's got a great mid block, and those are all great things. But like I said, once we're gonna get into the rest of these, I think you kind of see why this one falls a little flat. I think that my main gripe about this card is that it's not even the most efficient way to kill people in Denki's decks. Like, there are kind of more efficient ways, even under like all of the different symbols. I think this card is always just kind of a win more card. The extra damage like doesn't ever really matter unless you like can like effectively set up a huge like OTK like that to really like actually kill them at like, you know, 14, 15, whatever health. And they also have to like let it happen, right? Like this card kind of is a noob stopper more than anything, but I think it's still a really good card. If it was a 5 diff, maybe I'd think otherwise, but I think it's still a very good card. Just again, a lot of the ultra rares in this set are very good, and B tier is just like, again, B tier doesn't mean bad. It doesn't even mean mediocre. It just means a very solid card, right? Like these are our nuts. These are our amazing competitive cards. These are our solid guys. This is mediocre, and this is unplayable. So this is where this one falls. Hardened Pummel. Next we have Hardened Pummel. How I feel about Hardened Pummel. I like this card a lot, but I do think this is actually our first C tier card. So like, why is this a C tier card? So for one, this card is just like pitch and momentum, build one from hand. That is really nice. It effectively makes it a 4 diff, which is nice at the cost of a -1. But I mean, if you're playing this in Kirishima, he doesn't really care about that. But in anything else, you might think about it. But then he gets +5 damage, and that's cool. Basically says you just have to block this, which like playing this as your first with coordinated effort basically says I will play coordinated effort. If you have 2 momentum and like a billion cards in hand, you can like build 2 as well and like reuse this a second time, and it gets like really snutty. But it is a mid, so like it's usually like at best it's probably gonna deal 5 of those damages. I will say this card got a lot better with the introduction of Plus Ultra into the format, because a lot of decks want to play that card, and this says you don't get to block with Plus Ultra, because plain not being able to play action cards means you cannot block with them against this card either. So that's a really nice implementation. It's also good against Erase and Evil Gaze, because they want to block with those. They're mid blocks with Breaker 1s. But I mean, there's still so many other mid blocks in the game that like that effect is really going to only be like an inconvenience rather than a, oh, now I have to take 10 or 5 damage. You know, it's not really ever going to like lock them out of blocking. Just going to probably make it a little less convenient for them to do so. But it's still like a very okay card. Like I said, it's mediocre. It's just kind of a mediocre card in that sense. I do think as we probably get more decks in the game, I mean, and also we just need to get more actions in the game, right? There's like 6-7 actions in the game right now, and like you only want to block with 3 of them. So like, you know, it's just kind of too early for this card to be really good. But like, this card should definitely be sided in most decks that can play it, and definitely in every Kirishima deck. And it will get better over time, I think. But for now, sits very comfortably in the C tier. Next, we have Binding Cloth Capture. Binding Cloth Capture, I think, is another C tier card. I like this card a lot in theory. Like, this card is really cool. I like that it's basically a 3 diff in Eraserhead, as long as you erased offensively once. Which, like, that's really cool, but, like, it has to combo with a combo to get, like, its full value, so, like, most of the time you have to play it on a 5 anyway, which is still, like, fine, and, like, both enhancers are really solid, although, like, sealing something that far into the turn probably isn't going to do that much, and then having to discard a card, I mean, probably, like, them having to discard a card probably just says they have to discard their last block in hand, so they can't block this, but, like, which, like, is, like, nice, but it also kind of takes away the value of them not being, like, it being a low, right? Which makes it hard to block. Well, if you're just going to discard their hand anyway, it probably doesn't even matter. It is a 1 high block, and that's pretty cool, but the fact that it doesn't even see play in Eraserhead decks most of the time, just because, like, this is just not really the attack lineup he wants to be a part of. He kind of has all of these, like, combo things right now that I think just don't really work that well for him, that I think, like, in the future we'll see more of. I think, like, if you build Momo under all, I think she'll play this card pretty well, but I don't think that's even the better build for her, so I think this card just doesn't really have a spot at the moment, if that makes sense. Dark Shadow Ruin. God, I want to put this in S tier so bad. I want to so bad, and if it was usable to, like, its fullest, most efficient power in anything but Tokoyami, I would, but it's absolutely going to sit on top of A tier. This card is insane. Insane, man. Like, this card turns Tokoyami's entire deck on. This card is how he kills people. He does not kill people without this card. Like, it doesn't happen. It's so fast. Like, it's just the most free 9-10 damage in the world in Tokoyami. Like, every one of these you throw out is just nuts. It's so big. They have to save all their high blocks, and then you can just, like, punish them by playing Ice Storm and murdering them. And then, like, if for some reason you didn't play this extremely nutty card, it's a 1 mid with Breaker 1. Crazy. Absolute A tier card. Would be S tier if it was more versatile, but I think it's gonna have to stay in A tier for this. However, speaking of more versatile nutty card, Tape Swing. There's our S tier right there. This card's nuts. This card is a throw, but even better. This card is a throw, but even better because you're not even allowed to try and block it. If you only have the zone it is. Like, it's insane in Sero, obviously, because he gets the free zone changes, and it's just like, it's like his whole game plan, but it's so good in so many other decks. Todoroki plays this like a champ, like the whole throw Todoroki deck, like, such a big part of that deck this card is. Like, it's talking like Yoda right there, right? This card's just crazy. It's just so good. It starts out at 6 damage, like, the card's just really nuts. It's so versatile. It is a 2-check, yes, it does have that nasty 2-check. I don't like it, but it's just so worth putting this insane card in your deck to have that 2-check. I think it deserves that S tier spot for being so strong and playable in almost anything that can play it and probably would play it. Next, we got Specialized Sound Waves. This is, I think, a very strong A tier card. If we didn't have the 2-check, I think this would be an S tier as well. But I don't think it's strong enough to be an S with the 2-check like Tape Swing is. But this card is still really, really, really strong. Like, it being a flash, I think is just super, super good. Having so many responses, so you still get so much benefit from playing it. It's only a 3-diff, which is crazy, and it's a great block. You still get the draw when you block with it, so it's effectively, like, it's 2 cards no matter how you spin it. Then you can give your opponent a bad check, or you can just set up your next draw. You can set up your draw and then your check. So like if you have like an attack you want and then a 6-check, you just play this, put the 6-check on top, put the attack on top, then draw 1, draw your attack, then play it on a 6. And like, yeah, that's just amazing. It's just a great card, super, super solid card. I love me some Specialized Sound Waves. I want to put this in like almost every deck that I can. Every deck that I can like tolerate the 2-check for, right? Speaking of 2-checks, we have our last one. Yeah, it's our last 2-check, Grape Rush Attack. This card, it's good. Like, it is good. 4 mid for 8 is really scary. The 2-check is pretty lame, but the 1 low block is nice. The 5-diff, at least it's not a 6-2. And, like, I mean, it has to be a B tier, though, I think. If it wasn't, like, so Moneta restricted, right, I'd be a little more keen on the A tier. But, like, the 2-check, the Moneta restriction, and, like, it's kind of, like, slow, too. And it's a mid, so, like, it's always going to get half blocked at least. Like, it's not the scariest card in the world. 8 print and damage. Like, all this really says is this enhance actually just says add the sticky balls, because they have to block this, right? Like, you don't get to take 8. And like, if you do, I mean, that's a W for you. But like, all this 8 damage really says is this enhance effectively says this will happen, right? Like, ignore this if it's blocked part. Just give me my sticky balls, right? So, but I think it's a B tier card. It's like an okay card. I feel like if Moneta ever gets like another attack that says like this card is also eat my sticky balls, oh, I could totally see that happening from Moneta, and this would make this card insane. But for now, I think it's just a nice little B tier card. Next, we got Staff Strike. Staff Strike's an A tier for me, man. I can't go wrong with Staff Strike. Staff Strike is like the whole engine of a couple different decks in this game, and it's so good at what it does. Like, the fact that you can Staff Strike into Staff Strike, it even has powerful too. Like, it's got everything going for it. Like, man, if it wasn't a mid, I'd be head over heels for this card. But right now, I think it's just a very, very strong A tier card that it's the cornerstone of decks that revolve around it, and it enables itself. It draws you cards. It sets itself up. Like, it's just a very, very, very solid card. If it was like a 5, man, if it was a 5 diff and an off zone, maybe an S tier. I don't know. I don't know if it's versatile enough to qualify for that though, because like, again, like, it is literally like, if this card is in your deck, it is your entire deck. It's not like something you can just splash in. So on that criteria, not. So it's definitely still a very strong A tier. I like it. Relentless Barrage, Numbers ultra rare. This card's crazy good. It's absolute A tier for me. A 4 diff, 3 mid for 5. And if it's blocked, the next gets +2, and you pick up another one, it's effectively like a budget. It's a Texas Smash that kind of just like needs more setup, but it's still really, really, really good. And it's got a great block, which is great because you want to block with it to get it in your discard pile. Just a really, 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 really great punch card. Not much more to say about that. Meteor Shower, man. This might be my bias talking. This is definitely my favorite ultra rare in the game. I think Meteor Shower is S tier. I think this card is nuts. I think, like, the fact that, like, it is an engine of itself, but you can splash it in almost any deck that can play it. Like, as long as you can fit 4 of them in the deck, like, it's completely viable to put in the deck. And like, obviously it gets better with Ochako because she enables it, you know, by itself. But as long as you just find a second one, like, the card's doing the work that it needs, and I think it's just crazy good. I love Meteor Shower. I think you can put it in practically every deck, and it's just like this free recurring attack that's just gonna get a lot of value. And it's just a very, very strong attack in general. I find myself struggling to build any air or chaos deck without this. I feel like it's really, 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 really good. Next we got Frigid Heatwave. Frigid Heatwave is a very solid A tier ultra rare attack. This card's super good. It is limited to like the ranged attack card pool. Otherwise, I think it would potentially be an S tier if it was more versatile. If every deck could play this and draw 2, oh my god, I'd be crazy over it, man. But it being limited to the range card pool is like not bad because there's a lot of good range attacks. It's just not every deck wants to be playing them. But in the decks where you can play the range attacks, it is very good. It's still a very versatile pool of attacks depending on what symbols you're under. And this thing is just an off zone that can get very big, and it's a nice low block. Low blocks are just like an insane premium in this game. Low blocks are really hard to find right now for like almost all of the symbols except for like Good Life and Order, because they have like all of like they have Deku's both like super good low blocks from the demo deck or from the rival deck. But otherwise, it's pretty tough to find them. So I love me some Frigid Heatwave. This card's great. Next, Todoroki's second ultra rare. Yes, Todoroki. Why does your mom let you have 2 ultra rares? Because she burned half your face off. This card's S tier, guys. Ice Storm is crazy, man. A 4 diff for 3 on a low attack with powerful 3 can get super randomly huge, and then they can't block it with an attack. That's crazy. This card can randomly kill people. It's nuts. It's got a crazy good deadlock too, and it's a 2 mid block with Breaker 2. Breaker 2, oh my god. Those are like some of the scariest words you can tell any aggro player whatsoever. Breaker 2 ends lives, it ends turns, it changes entire careers. This card's amazing. I like anyone that can play this. Like I'm maining 2 siding 2 on like any deck that can play this, man. It's just so good. Like the fact that I can just pull out Breaker 2 randomly and be like, hey, you're dead. And like if you just didn't see this like at all in the discard pile or like on checks game 1, I'm just gonna throw it out there and you're like, bro, did you keep a low foundation? It's time to die. If not. This card's crazy good. Crazy good. I definitely think that it fits all of the S tier categories. Recupero Burst. Oh, Recupero Burst. Recupero Burst, I love you. I love you, Recupero Burst. But I think I've got to put you in the B tier, man. Plus Ultra. Plus Ultra just says this can always be half blocked, which like isn't necessarily bad, but you want to make it like enough to just like kill them, right? And when it only becomes actually a throw on a plus ultra, it's not as great. And granted, I feel a little bit better about making this big and trying to kill them rather than like this, because if you're playing under the Ida symbols, you have access to Natural Leader, and if you're playing under Order, you also have Shock Treatment. So like there are ways to commit down your opponent's troubling foundations. And you also have Electric Jolt. You have ways on some of these symbols to commit down your opponent's annoying things that prevent you from like actually getting the value, like the stat resets, right? The stat reset cards in the game. You could actually have answers to those in these symbols, unlike any of the big All Might game plans. He can't play those cards, but Recupero Burst definitely can. Also, if you're under Void, you can play Night Watch as well. So you have a lot of versatility as far as answering, and then plus Ultra like only half answers you, which is also really cool because that's the one you aren't allowed to interact with. So I think this card's still like it's still good. If I'm ranking these more, it's definitely like probably like at the top of B tier, because like it's still a really solid card. I just don't think that like. I just don't think that I can. These are probably not really any particular order. These are probably really good. But Recupero Burst is good, but I just think I still have to stuff it down here in the B tier. It's just it's one of the more interactable big kill moves in the game, especially like if they have like God, what is it? Capture Evildoers. That's like one of the worst things, because then you can go, okay, I'll discard a momentum and gain all my, or rather, I'll like if they have Capture Evildoers, you have to EX but leave 2, because if you EX down to 1 momentum, then the Evildoers your momentum, then you don't get to get your damage, and it's the most feels bad moment ever. So like again, there's just a lot of like hiccups with this card, but it is still good. It's a very solid B tier card. Evil Gaze. Oh my god, I love this card so much. Evil Gaze slams into the A tier for me. I freaking love this card. It's like such a, I think I love this card so much because it's such a unique card. It's a one-of-a-kind card in set 1. This kind of interaction just doesn't exist on other cards in set 1 right now, and I think it's so good. Being like the end-all answer to coordinated effort is such a strong thing to be right now, and like when you don't want to use those abilities, just, you know, +1 mid block with Breaker 1. It's a race, baby. You know, you can't go wrong with that. It's just never a dead card. It's always a good card. Like, you're just always so excited to see this in your hand, and it's so playable in like all of its symbols. I love me some Evil Gaze. I love it, love it, love it. Turn to Dust. Turn to Dust. Turn to Dust. Man, I know like this is gonna sound crazy because this card has Stun 2 on it, and that's terrifying. But I think Turn to Dust is a B tier card before y'all get the pitchforks, let me just kind of like break it down. The thing about those two abilities on Turn to Dust is they're only really good in a deck that's like synergized to burn and destroy foundations a lot. Which is Shigaraki, right? It's his ultra rare, so that makes sense, right? But even in Shigaraki, I just don't think this card is synergistic enough with like my whole game plan. At least more so than the other attacks in my deck. It's so hard for me to put this in over something like long-lasting explosion, exploding pride, a touch of decay. That one's okay, but like decaying grip, corrosion lunge. Like it's really hard for me to find space for this in Shigaraki decks. Over those other attacks because they're just so Merciless Rush. They're just so synergistic to his whole game plan. And this card like is, but it isn't. Like it is in a very indirect way. And like don't get me wrong, Stun 2 is very scary and it's got a great block, but I don't know. I don't find myself even playing this in Shigaraki. The only deck I found myself playing this is in like Death or Fire Bakugo. And even then like I think I like Air Bakugo the most out of all his symbols anyway, so it's like how applicable is that even? I think it's just like, I don't know, it doesn't really have a good home yet, I feel. Like it's just like it's a super solid standalone card, but I don't think it really does anything in a lot of really good decks right now. I haven't found a good spot for it. Next is Froglashing. Froglashing is an A tier card, man. This card kills people. This card enables a lot of characters. Sue and Aoyama, off the top of my head, both of them, this card's how they kill people. They don't kill people without this card, but they absolutely kill people with this card. It's just big damage. Starts at 6, can easily become 9 or 10. It's an off zone, and it's also just got a 1 mid block with Breaker 1, and it readies 2, so it's on like a 3 diff essentially. Card's crazy. Card's crazy good. So easy to play 2 or 3. If you find 2 or 3 of these in one turn, you kill any character in the game, practically. Like, card's crazy good. I feel like this card should have been a mid block at least, or like not start at 6. It gets so big, man. It gets so big, and like they just keep getting bigger as they keep going. Crazy good card. And our last card is Naval Laser Beam. Man, I really want to put this in S tier, but I think that's just my Breaker 2 bias talking. So I think it's going to go into A tier, but like, this card's just so versatile, man. I can put this card in pretty much any of these symbols. These symbols all have good flip abilities to abuse the pitch momentum to unflip too. You don't even have to go for the stats. You can just be a 3 mid that says you have to block me. Give me a card out your hand, right? You have to block me. I got my unflip 2 out of this. I'm perfectly fine. It does require a lot of setup in that sense. You got to get the momentum and you got to flip stuff prior to it because it has to be your first enhance, but it's still just an insane card. And like early game when you draw it and you just like, you know, you haven't gained momentum, you haven't flipped things yet, you haven't set it up yet, oh no, I'll just play it as my mid block with Breaker 2. Crazy, insane. Breaker 2, like I said, Breaker 2 ruins careers. So that's it, guys. That is the tier list. We just like didn't use the D tier, which I mean, the D tier is just like almost irrelevant in this game at the moment. Almost like every card is really good. Like set 1 and the promos and the DLC, like everything's really good. I don't really have space for it. I don't really have use for a D tier. It was the default. I didn't really think of it beforehand that I probably wouldn't use it, but it's just completely unnecessary for this. And even when it comes to like the characters, there's like no. I lie. There's one character. There's one character I would put in D tier, and we all know who it is. But that's another video. This is our ultra rare tier list. This is, once again, this is a tier list. This is just my opinions. This is how I feel about things. If you have different opinions, different concerns, things I might not be keen to, feel free to leave them in the comments below. I would be elated to see what you guys have to say about my list, and I would love to hear your list. If you have your own list, feel free to tweet it at me. You can follow my Twitter down below in the description. And if you really liked this video, if you enjoyed this insightful commentary and tier list, give me a like, give me a comment, give me some subscribes, give me some subscribes, give me all of the subscribes, buy me some subscribes, yo. And also you can follow me on Twitch for more cool card game content and more MHA card game content. Until then, guys, that has been me, Alliteration Gaming, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye-bye.